Welcome to the Smarten Up Show, Biblical Education Principles. We are Darryl and Milena Weinberg, the founders of SchoolPods Canada, soon to be SchoolPods International.
Yes.
And we are very, very glad to be with you this evening. How are you all? How are you?
I'm well. We have officially transitioned into fall weather, and I think we're finally in a back to school mode. September was just too summery to to get going. So our world is changing. Our schools are changing. Parents are encountering new things. Children are not sure what to think of all that. And as we have spoken in our past show, in September, there was a march for parental rights. Oh, and we have echo here. All right. I think parents are finally realizing that their rights have been systematically taken away from them by the public school system. And now they are looking for answers. And I'm hoping we can discuss some principles, some ways that parents can really find answers and solutions to the current situation. Now, I know there are still demonstrations happening. And that is only one of many ways that parents can seek for their rights and for really their voices to be heard again in the public school system. I don't know how long it's been since that's happened, but we're hoping this is going to return. But for those who know how far along this has gone, they know that we need to look for other solutions at this time. And so last show, our son shared a little bit about his experience of public schooling, homeschooling, Christian schooling, co-ops, and now pods. And, we have been really blessed with a child who's willing to try all these things.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have much of a choice in the matter, but he's been certainly game for the ride.
And so I know a lot of you as the parents, we are hearing from a lot of parents who are saying, oh, my child is, we started homeschooling and my child is missing their friends and the socialization. And a lot of parents are giving in and sending their children back to the public school system where they're not happy to do that. But because of the bonds and the relationships that the children need to form, they have given in. And so, again, I think we need to look at the overall picture. What is the objective at this time? What are the important things? And how can we overcome these obstacles to either homeschooling or pods or co-ops or any other form of schooling other than the public school system? Because at this time, what do we think about the public school system?
Well, it's damaging your kids. If you're sending your kids to public school, certainly here in Canada, I know in many places in the States, I know that not every district in the U.S. is like that, but pretty much in Canada, right across the board, and certainly the Democratic states, your kids are being damaged. They are being confused, and they. What is going to happen down the road with that is catastrophic. There will not be one child that will not escape unscathed in some fashion or another, even if they're just having to fight against this, like a Josh Alexander, the Canadian teen who stood up in Catholic school and said that there were two genders. He was suspended. He was arrested.
Well, he was asked to come back apologizing for his point of view. And when he came back without the apology, because he firmly believes in the Bible and he believes that he's got the right in this country to believe that, he came back. And when he did not produce an official apology, that's when he was charged with trespassing in the school because he wasn't there under their conditions.
Yeah, and they took him away in handcuffs. So speaking the truth in today's day and age is a thought crime. And we are literally living out the conditions in George Orwell's 1984. And the Ministry of Truth is all lies, and everything is doublespeak. Everything is what they say is exactly the opposite. So if you have a government agencies that says it is doing something, be rest assured it's doing the exact opposite.
The opposite of that. So that is, I think we've spoken about this. I think we are aware. I'm speaking to more and more parents who are saying, I can't trust anyone. And I think it's a sad place to come to where you can trust nobody. I mean, when we first started pods and there were still lockdowns and groups are trying to do things, they didn't even want to hire teachers because they couldn't trust a single teacher. So I hope we can give a little bit of a healthy perspective here on this, because we can't swing the pendulum from we trust everything that the government says and everything the public school system says to we don't trust anyone that has any kind of teacher training and is being part of the system. Because just like the families and the parents of children, the teachers are waking up. And the children, they have children of their own. A lot of them are parents as well. Now, one thing I spoke with today with a parent is that she's starting to get sense that the teachers are there now for the paycheck, And you know what? Just like our society and the parents who are standing up for their rights are being demoralized, so are the teachers who really care and who want to make a difference and who want to. So some time ago, I read an article that after COVID and what it did to our society, we are all now, and that's not just society here in North America, but all over the world. All of us now, we are living in a state of PTSD. And we need to understand that we are all suffering, but we also need to understand that there's a healthy way of dealing that and having not trusting anyone. I guess we need to develop our discernment. We need to start looking into informed decisions.
Well, the other issue is that PTSD assumes the trauma is over, and we have continual trauma. I mean, it's just every day.
It's not post-traumatic.
It's current
traumatic stress.
And so you're having to deal with the trauma. You're having to live through it. You're still having to manage. But you're also learning how to overcome. And, we have to say from a biblical perspective, it's only through Yeshua, it's only through Jesus that you can do that, because God is the only answer. I mean, we have now got full-blown war over in Israel, and just looking at the pictures over there, I mean, I have been nonstop just looking at the updates of what's going on, because we are watching biblical prophecy unfold. And, Yeshua even said that at some point in time, men's hearts would fail for fear.
Well, and I think that's one we need to watch out for is the fear, and not to let that overtake us. But also, this is a tough time for parents to be raising children and telling their children there's another big war that just started in another part of the world. And for the parents to manage, because they know they have to look after their children. They have to look after the household. They're already struggling with finances, struggling with life and all kinds of stressors. And so one big thing I wanted to discuss today is making proactive decisions versus reactive decisions. So everybody knows that while those extreme conditions are now becoming a norm in our lives, and we're not going back to that normal that we had before, we just are not. And we have to somehow embrace that and now start developing coping mechanisms. And this is actually one of the things that we are big on in School Pods Canada, is that part of the daily teaching, daily learning is those coping life skills. I have had questions from people who are interested in pods, in addition to how pods work. And when I say, well, we do life skills, language, math, sciences, and so forth, I said, we also do life skills. And one of the big questions is, what kind of life skills do you teach children? So the life skills that children need to learn nowadays are those coping mechanisms, growth mindset, conflict resolution, planning, setting goals, and then keeping track of the goals, managing our time, organizing ourselves, coming up with a plan and following a plan, and then checking how progress as we're going, and then adjusting that plan. How to be a friend, how to be thankful. Then it's easy to, I was even teaching our pod today here, and because it was Thanksgiving here in Canada, I thought we will speak about gratitude. We'll speak about things we are thankful. And you have to see how frequently I had to steer the conversation from going in a negative direction and trying to bring it back to the positive. These are skills that the children need to develop now. And I think they're developing them with their adults, with their parents right now, because we have been living in quite comfortable and fairly conflict-free society. And all of a sudden, all these conflicts, all these difficulties are coming our way. And we haven't developed these skills. The adults haven't. And I would really recommend, and I think one of the ideas we've spoken with our social media, our website designer, was that it's a good idea. I'm thinking of starting a Pinterest account where we can have some ideas for parents how to teach these things, how to practice them at home. Because again, we don't want a teacher only to be teaching that in a pod. We want the family to be involved in that and to be learning and practicing that together.
Well, the idea of the pod is to have community. Yes. And it's not just about school has over the past couple of generations become something that is a segmented part of our life. And when you compartmentalize your life like that, nothing has relation to anything else. Yeah. And so, and this is one of the big complaints that you get within the church, for instance, that you have people who behave a certain way when they're at church. You have them behave a certain way when they are at home. They behave a certain way when they're at work, and all of these may be different personas. Yes. But the life of a believer, the life of someone who follows Yeshua, who's a Christian, is who they are, no matter when.
And that's how it should be. We should be the same.
And it's the same thing with school. And so school is supposed to be a component of our community living. Yes. But when they transition out of school into whatever else, everything else follows with them. And so the values that we experience and learn through there are supposed to be, as a matter of fact, school is supposed to be where they are taught these things. So, what we're doing here with the teaching of the life skills is enabling them to be better, corporate citizens everywhere else
citizens.
They go.
Better citizens.
Better members of society, because if all you're doing is teaching the academics, which, by the way, they're not even doing that. They're not even doing it. We have a young man that you are tutoring right now, and he's
supposed to be grade 10 according to his age.
And he's 2 years behind because
on math, at least,
because of all of this drama and this trauma and all these other things that are going on in the school system. And he is not unique, unfortunately, by any stretch of the imagination.
And unfortunately, some of his trauma has been inflicted by
teachers.
School interaction with teachers. Yep. So and this is why with School Pods Canada, we're trying to again recreate that trust, parents with the other parents with teachers, administration, which of course we are for those. Conversations needs to start happening again, but we need to do them outside of the system context. And so, an example of another life skill, we have a farm not too far from here.
Yes.
And we watch your farmers work very hard all the time. And so we've developed a relationship when we go by to buy things from them or just arrange things. And And at first they were reluctant to ask, but we kept on insisting. We said, well, we are part of a homeschool community. If you guys need help, tell us. We'll let the homeschool community know. And at first they're like, well, we don't know. They were talking about safety, which is a concern. And again, we need to be proactive about this, not reactive when that takes place. But finally they started saying, well, you know what, we could really use help picking apples and pears, cleaning things up, doing things. And so these are the life skills, identifying where in the community that there's a need, showing appreciation for who's in the community, but then really caring for what can we do to help them? How can we make them function better? How can we give back, because farmers give a lot to our community.
Yes.
Without them,
and that's why they're trying to shut them down, so that they can't provide us.
They are experiencing a lot of pressures right now from government regulations and so forth. So again, when we come together as a community, those life skills are learned by just interaction and by having a good moral guidance, really. And this is what we want to create. And I think we were supposed to have a guest here today. She didn't show up, but she wanted to convey a message. She said that because of what's happening in the world, because of this really society-wide PTSD, she said we need to start creating those safe places for families, those safe places for children. And it just, for us, it's hurtful to see parents sending their children to those schools, knowing that those schools are not really, they don't really care about the parents' rights, about the parents.
No, they disdain them.
Yes. And so, but they keep sending because they feel like there's no way. And I'm here to say to you today, okay, it is time to start working on a plan, on your exit plan. You cannot just wait and see what's going to happen. Maybe it will get better. Maybe Justin Trudeau is going to disappear. People, we can't just hope for these things. We need to have
a political solution isn't your answer, because voting doesn't count anymore. And you also have to remember that we're watching things, that we are in the end times, and things are going to get really bad. And what God needs people to do is step up, take responsibility, and to make the difference themselves, because through him we can still flourish, we can still succeed. But if we're just sitting back and waiting and complaining about it, and listen, there are plenty of Monday morning armchair quarterbacks. But to be able to make a difference now, people have to step up, and people have to take ownership of their kids, which they always should have.
Yes.
But
you're the rightful owner of your children.
Yeah.
And not owner. Owner is not quite the word, but you're the guardian, the one who's responsible for them. And therefore you have a say in their lives. And
for people who are hired with your tax dollars to tell you that you don't have a say in your children's upbringing, I mean...
Actually, which brings me to...
That's pitchfork and torches territory.
Why aren't we doing that? I guess a lot of us are not farmers and don't have pitchforks. But anyway, which brings me to which province was it now where the court had made a statement that they're not going to examine cases that have to do with parental rights. Was it in Saskatchewan? Where legislation...
I don't remember.
Okay, one of our provinces that passed legislation that parents need to be informed. Anyway, it was the court system that the court said that we are not going to even look at cases. We're not taking cases. We are not going to judge when it comes to parental rights things. So they're taking their hands off and saying, we're not backing up this legislation. We are not going to take that into our courts.
Yeah, it's probably Saskatchewan.
I think it was Saskatchewan. And so what's happening now, it seems like we are making progress. So there were 2 provinces that passed legislation that parents need to be informed, fully involved in their children's I guess, information and their exploration of genders and so forth. But now we're having the judicial system that doesn't want to back that up, doesn't want to live by those standards that are passed by law.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that makes you think, how is it that there's a law being passed, legislation is being passed, and then the justice system doesn't want to accept that?
Well, because the justice system has forgotten what its role is. We have, in division of government, you have the lawmakers, which in Canada is Parliament, in the United States it's Congress, and then the Senate, of course, passes that. The judiciary is supposed to interpret that, but now what we have are called activist judges, and this is what this whole fuss in Israel was all about. With the Supreme Court and the reformation of it, is that you had activist judges who were extremely liberal, whatever that means anymore, I don't even know. But they were progressive and certainly anti-freedom. And they now reject laws that the lawmakers that we elect are the one that are passing.
So not only are the parents not being respected in the education system, but now the law is saying we are not going to protect the parent and the parental rights. So I know now currently in Ottawa, we do have a group of people who are showing up in front of Parliament on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it's wonderful that the people once more try to call the government to a conversation and to just to be heard. And that's one of the things you can do. And I'm watching live streams from that event, and these people out there, they feel that they're called to take that role, to be there, to demonstrate, to educate the people who are around Ottawa, around the Parliament building. But every live stream that I watch, they always ask, what are you going to do? And they really point at you and say, what are you going to do? Because at this point, you can't leave to a few people to do something for you. Mm-hmm. The only way a true difference, a true change can be made is when everyone comes together and does something. And you have to decide what it is, because we also have people who go for this cause and that cause, and then they end up being overwhelmed, and then they stop all causes. So again, being proactive then rather than being reactive. Oh, today this is a problem, I'm going to go there today. This is no, we have to think about what is important to us. Mm-hmm. What do we want to see? How can we achieve that? What do we feel that our strengths are, and where are we called to participate? We spoke in past shows that some parents are asked to participate in parent councils in schools. Again, we have friends who are in parent councils that have influenced that. But the warning to that is, if you're the only voice that stands for parental rights, then the council is a majority vote. Yeah. So whatever the majority votes, that's the decision. That's what the school's going to go with. So again, you cannot have one person sit on parent council and you hope that they're going to make the difference on your behalf.
No, we had that principal from Toronto a few months ago that he ended up committing suicide because he was being bullied. There was this class for diversity training or whatever foolishness it was, and he spoke up about it and said, no, I don't agree with that, because it's not based on fact. It's not based on science. Yes. And he was bullied, he was ridiculed, and it drove him to commit suicide.
Yes.
So if you're going to be the lone voice, if you're going to be the lone goldfish in a sea of in a tank full of piranhas, it's not going to go well for you. No. And so the answer really is, at this point, you have to pull your kids out. I'm all for standing up for rights and I'm all for protesting. But if you now have a system in place and it's systematic, it's right across the board. We saw that again, and that we keep reiterating this with the trucker convoy last year. 3 weeks, you had hundreds of thousands of people that were on the streets of Ottawa. There has never been a protest like that, certainly in Canada, and maybe since the Solidarity movement in Poland back in the 80s against communism. And how did the government respond? Well, Trudeau kept coming down with COVID, surprisingly, and he kept having to go into recovery, but he never came out. And what he did is
then send a representative to talk to the people. If you're that sick, if you care, do something. It's just.
But the intent was never to listen to the people. Yes. We're going to use brute force, and this is what they're doing. So the way to combat that and make sure that your children are safe, you pull them out. If you can homeschool, wonderful.
Yes.
We are all for parents taking ownership and responsibility for educating their kids. But let's face reality here. Parents have to work. Not everybody's called to be a teacher. I watch what she does. I could not do what she does.
Yeah.
And so I am very thankful that she is here and I'm not having to do it, because my son, I'm not sure what he would walk out with if I was responsible for teaching. So my point is that we are here for you. We're going to hire professional educators to come in, but you have to pull your kids out, because when two things happen. Number one, you hit them where it hurts financially, because the school boards get money for the number of kids that are in there. So if you want school boards to change, you've got to pull out the source of funding. But second of all, they've got nobody to indoctrinate at that point. Yeah. And so they are going to be forced to change. Otherwise, they're not going to have a purpose anymore. And the thing that a bureaucrat hates more than anything else is no purpose, because that means then their jobs are at risk.
Right. So that is something else you can do. I know a lot of people have run for trustees and so forth to represent the people. Again, that is something that is a difficult thing to do, because there's actually bullying now in those rooms where decisions are being made in the meetings, board meetings and council meetings and so forth. So again, that's, if you feel called to do that, go ahead and do that, because somebody needs to make an example. Somebody needs to be the voice. And that is a specialized kind of calling.
Yeah.
We're talking to the parents here now, the average parent who just is dedicated to their work, is dedicated to whatever they're doing at this time. Yes, pulling your children out is the only solution, because if this system is not serving you, then you don't participate in it.
Right.
What do we teach our children? Oh, if your friend is not nice to you, then you don't play with your friend. I mean, I as a teacher, I kind of bring it down to the simplest thing like
exactly.
that. You don't play with the system if the system doesn't want to play with you. And so the other things I would like to do is to encourage people that if there's an opportunity, if somebody is calling a school pod or maybe a new initiative for a school, whatever is starting, and they're calling you and they're saying, we have an open house. If you are truly interested to explore that opportunity, show up. I know there's a lot of, at this time, it's time for family, it's time for gatherings, and which is good. And hopefully your family is going to be there for you every time you need them. When there's an opportunity, though, for you to explore an alternative for your child's education, show up, go to those meetings, ask questions. When they ask you for feedback, give feedback.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying this is because we here at School Pods Canada, last year we had a few school pods going. This year we don't have as many. And by the amount of interest that we heard that there was, we were thinking that there would be.
Yep.
And so part of it is people were just not showing up. They were vacationing this summer. And so this is what happened. What ended up, and I'm not saying don't take vacations, please do.
Yep.
But the thing is, when the school year is getting close, start looking. Now we're looking at a January start of school pods, because now people have kind of started some kind of routine. They've started what they're doing for the school year, but and it's time to continue looking. Do not give up on making a plan. Yes, it is tiring. Yes, you know what? All these teachers who want to prepare schools like the forest schools, like all these pods and all those teachers are working very hard to prepare programs for your for your children, to make sure that they're educated, to make sure that their needs are met, that you as the parent, you need to partner up with them and put the effort into connecting with those teachers, into connecting with us at School Pods Canada or any other organization that is putting pods together. Connect with them, ask how you can support them, ask what you can do. Because you are in your community, and we can no longer be passive. We can no longer wait for the solution to drop in our lap.
We are the solution.
Yes, we are. And even here at School Pods Canada, I mean, we live in Niagara region, Ontario. We have inquiries about pods all over Canada and the United States. We are not in these places physically, but if we find people who want to be community builders, who want to really inquire by, just let the community know that this is an opportunity. We want to hear from you. If you're a teacher who left the system because you could not agree with the things that are happening, contact us. Let's get started with you. Let's create a program. Let's create something, build something. As they say, if you build it, they will come. And so we need builders.
Yeah.
We need people who are going, whether you're a parent, we've had some really helpful parents that have either looked for a location or recruited other parents, whether at their child's dance class or sports team or whatever. You are a human being. You talk in your community to other parents. More and more parents now are looking for a solution, and we can't just look for our personal solution for our own child only. We have to now look out for each other in a society type of way. Because what happens is if everybody looks for after their own solution, then opportunities would not be available. We need to help one another create opportunities and solutions.
Yeah.
And this is what we want to tell you. We really need a safe place. And you know what? In your community, you will have other parents who are like-minded, other parents. You will have parents who do not agree with you in some ways. That is okay. Diversity is a good thing. I don't understand, because Canada and the United States was founded on diversity. People coming from whatever nation to be here. I remember when I was in school, like it was just like, one of the outstanding features of Canada and the US is the diversity. What happened all of a sudden? If we disagree with someone, we can't talk to them anymore.
Right.
No, we need to talk to one another. We need to embrace our diversity. And listen, if you find that your values are not similar, then you don't have to have a pod together. But then you can keep looking, and you can let those people know that they can have their own values in their own pod. We don't have to agree on everything, but at the same time, we shouldn't look at disagreement as a reason to separate. So what if we celebrate different holidays? What if we even believe in a different God? I mean, we don't. And this is what I say, like in a pod, when there's families with different traditions, different faiths, just because somebody believes something doesn't mean that the whole pod has to believe that, which is what's happening in public schools. Small percentage of society believes in something. Now everybody has to believe that. Because
they're the ones who have the power and control.
Well, there's funding being put that way.
Right. And so what the agenda is, and the objective is to neutralize your voice, because if you're afraid to speak up, and this is what happened with this principal who committed suicide. He spoke a different opinion, and he was bullied to the point where he committed suicide. And that's an adult who felt a principal who felt so powerless that he had to commit suicide. What does your child feel like? So it's what's called learned helplessness. And we are told to toe the party line. And it's just like every other totalitarian society throughout history. I mean, if you study the Nazi regime, for instance, and these are the same tactics that are being used, or communism. You grew up in communism. What weren't you allowed to do? You weren't allowed to speak anything against the government
in public.
Because you couldn't even trust necessarily friends and family members, because if you had an informant
there were informers. Yes, there were in churches, in communities, and gatherings. There were always people who pretend to be your friends, to pretend to be Christians, pretend to be. There were some people who were pastors that weren't really informants. So they would start a church, people would start coming, and then they would betray everybody. So. Of course, people grew wiser over the years and started recognizing, and I think here in Canada, in the United States, we just need to grow up faster and grow wiser faster.
Well, we don't have much time.
There isn't time, and we have already seen an example of what happened in Eastern Europe. It was not that long ago, 30 years ago. I came to Canada 30 years ago at the end of communism. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that long ago. So we should not be forgetting history, and we should not be making our own mistakes now. We should learn from other mistakes. And our mistakes right now would be if we stay passive, if we stay quiet. A biggest history event was a Second World War and the extermination of people. It wasn't a big deal. They stayed quiet. They didn't think it was going to go too far. It went too far.
Yep.
In communism, people didn't think it was going to go too far. It went too far.
Because evil always does. It's never satisfied, and there's no negotiating. And what you see happening in Israel right now with the campaign against Gaza is that Israel, for many, many years, had tried to make détente and try to appease the Palestinians. But when you have people whose sole objective is your elimination, and that's what our governments want, make no mistake about it. The same spirit that rules over radical Islam, rules over the governments of the world and World Economic Forum and all these other organizations. Their objective is your elimination. The Georgia Guidestones told us that population reduction, 90%, they want to reduce human population down to 500 million. And those of us who do not believe the same as they do are considered to be chattel and are disposable. And they, in fact, what they do is they call us useless eaters. We have to understand what the agenda is.
So you're upset that we don't have parental rights in schools. Meanwhile, there's a bigger problem than just that.
Well, but what's going on in the schools and what's going on with government and what's going on with all these things, they are symptoms of the greater problem, is that the people who run the world do not have our best interest in mind, and you cannot negotiate with them. No. And so what happened was within Israel, they kept trying to make, they kept using restraint. And now what's happening is that, the 900 or 1,000 or 1,200 Israelis were brutally slaughtered in the most unimaginable. I mean, they decapitated babies.
Wow, evil does that.
And so now Israel is waging a scorched earth campaign against Gaza. You got 2.5 million people in this really small area. And, they're crying out and saying, well, what about the women and the children? Well, what about them? You see, there are consequences for for evil.
But either way, it's complex.
It's very complex, but this is what we're dealing with here.
Yes, it is. And so, okay, I'm just going to let you go.
Yep.
My cat came here to tell us something's going on. So what we're here to speak to you tonight is about solutions. So we do not want to focus on the fact that everything's bad, because even in those bad situations, there's always a solution. There in the Bible, it says that there's no situation that God does not provide a way out. There's always a way out. And so we're here to seek for those ways out. But the first and foremost way out is really to create safe places for children. And this is why when we ask people about school pods and what is necessary, one of the things we say is we would like the children to be learning in a home environment, in a comfortable home environment. So usually a family with host. And I know it's a big sacrifice when somebody opens their home and has a few kids coming on daily basis in their home. But you know what? the bigger sacrifice is not opening your home and having your children be in a hostile environment and hostile society. So we would like the children to have a safe place. Then the teacher, we extensively interview the teachers. We ask for their resumes. We ask for vulnerable criminal reference check by the police. We have conversations with them. We get to know who they. You cannot develop discernment. You cannot understand a situation if do not become involved in it. If you do not get to know the people that you're working with. So that's why we need to make sure that we're not making decisions based on the fact that we are upset about something happening right now. Because when a decision is made either in anger or in fear or any other strong emotion like that, often this is not the best decision that we can make. And so if we want to make good decisions, we need to start looking at what is important to us. What is our goal for our family? And then from there, how do we want to achieve it? What are we comfortable with? What are we not comfortable with? When you have a plan, then if an opportunity comes your way that is not does not match your values, then you don't say yes to it because you feel like you have no other choice. You should never be in a position where you're saying, I did not have a choice. I did something that it's not really I want, but that's the only choice I had. No, there's never such a thing. So when we bring families together, the children are starting to form those relationships. People are just hesitant to join and commit to a pod because they're not sure what it's going to be. Then help shape it. If you can shape the environment in a school through parent council, can you not come together in a pod of 5 to 10 children and have that council together and make decisions together? Why can't we do that in a society in the system and the structures developed by the system, but we can't do that in our own little groups and communities and in our pods where we come together? So I don't think there's such a thing as I have no choice. We always have a choice. And then the question is, how much is it worth to us? What are we willing to do to make this happen? And sometimes there's a saying that if the pain of changing is greater than the pain of staying the same, then we will never change. But if the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing, then we will find the strength to change, because we don't want to stay where we're at. If we want change, then we have to make this happen and really find a big enough reason to do this. A lot of times finances, parents come to us and say, the finances don't really allow us. Well, at School Pods Canada, when we tell parents what our costs are and the finances, the system we have created, when we tell them, they're actually quite surprised how low it is. I have a neighbor right now, the husband and wife are talking and say, when you told us what the cost is, we started talking and planning. That's what you need to do in your home. What are things that we're spending money on that we don't need to be spending money on now? What is more important, that Christmas gift and that birthday gift, or is our child's future and the opportunity they would have to learn with other children, to have a professional teacher that we have chosen? You get to say even of who is going to be your teacher, whether you like your teacher. You get to give feedback on that. This is why at School Pods Canada, we are really the people who make sure that the parents' voices are heard with the teacher and the teacher's voice is heard with the parents, and there's collaboration. That is the only way we can make something that is good for our children, because they are the main objective. Yes, we're fighting for our rights right now, but really what's at stake here is the next generation's future and what kind of society they will be growing up in. And the more kids come out of that system, that creates that society that's hostile to them, the more that society is going to become what we want it to be, which is a favorable environment for those who want to do good. I have seen so many times parents say, we have to prepare our children for this cruel world. And then the answer to that is no. We have to make sure that we don't allow the world to become so cruel that our children have to become jaded at a young age, that they have to become untrusting and to have all these stressors on them. I know that there are many challenges in life, and we need to teach our children proactively how to deal with those. But we're not to assume that the world's bad and therefore we have to prepare for bad things. We have to. It's how we teach our children is what our society is going to be in the future. It's not a passive thing. It is not something that we have to accept without anything that we can do about it. There is a choice, and then you have to really make that choice. So we encourage you to contact us. We encourage you to think about, and we will send you a parent questionnaire that will give you some ideas of what kind of things you need to think about when you want a pod to come together. And one of the questions is, what can you do for the pod? Can you volunteer in a certain way? Can you offer up your home? Can you help with maybe carpooling? Do you know other people? Can you help spread the word? Do you have any skills that you can contribute? School doesn't have to be keeping the parents away just because they're not professional educators. We are constantly teaching our children, but you have to understand that you are coming in a partnership with other families and with the teacher. The only reason we want professional teachers is because they just have been taught many techniques in many ways, child psychology, which they can take then and apply that to a program that's going to work for your children. I have read a lot of chats at different groups, and so there are reports. They're unofficial, but they're witness reports that attendance in schools is drastically falling. So it is happening. But then what are we doing when we pull our children out? I hear that private schools, Christian schools, are full. A lot of them are now expanding their buildings. They're looking for ways to get more kids. Well, so there are a lot of people who need a community. So when there isn't an institution already developed like a private school where your child can come in, then School Pods Canada can help you structure and organize yourself. So we are going to be your structure and organizers. And all you have to do is come up with a plan of what do you want to see. Not come up with a plan, but come up with a vision of what do you want to see in your pod. And then we'll take that and share that with the teacher, and that teacher is going to work with you. So it is time. It is time to change our thinking. It is time to start doing something about it. When it comes to finances, like I said, we need to reevaluate where our money goes, where we spend our time, where we spend our money. The Bible says that's where our treasure is. And so what is our treasure? It's our children. There is no question. There's nothing more important to us but our children. And some people listening to this may say, well, I have no children. I don't know how I can participate. All the children are your children in our society because they are your country's future. So again, we have to really steer away from this individualism. We have to steer away from, well, it doesn't concern me directly, so I don't think I can do anything about it, or you can't. So this is our call for help. Let us come together. Let's form those groups, those communities. Let's help you here at School Pods Canada give you some guideline of how to do this. We are even willing to make sure and be training the teacher to be communicating with the parents. We're willing to ensure that this pod thrives and it's successful. We do not want a pod to start because a bunch of people are upset about what's happened in their community. And then they just start something without planning it. And then as soon as the first obstacle, the first difference or disagreement comes, it falls apart. We don't want that to happen. We want proactive planning. We have a form, a parent questionnaire that we're going to send to you individually. But then when a group comes together, we go and together and discuss some important topics that are going to ensure the longevity and well-being of your pod. Send us emails, call us. Be patient. We have a lot of people calling us, a lot of people joining the community. But when you try to contact us, I would like you to have in mind also, what do you think you can do? Just like all these people who are now trying to stand up for parental rights, and they're asking, what are you doing in your community right now to change things? I'm just thinking of some funny quote I saw on a sign. Everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper roll. I mean, we have to start with little things like that. Start with our home, start changing things in our home, start teaching our children what's morally right, and then start living it out as a family, and then start joining a community where we live it as a community. The reason children feel lonely, because they just feel that they're the only ones who are doing what they're doing, that their parents have chosen. And, it is a lonely thing to come against a system that has taken many years to develop and to get to where it is. So we need to now come together. I don't know how much I can stress this, but if you seek for solutions for just your family, for just your child, then you will perhaps find that, but you will feel very lonely. And at the end, you may cave in and start compromising because we, as human beings, as social beings. So you need to find your own solution, but then you need to ask yourself, how can you help the community? And starting one pot at a time. If we have 5 to 10 children, it's just a handful of families that need to come together in small groups like that. It is more likely that we'll find a common voice, that we will be able to influence the culture of the community that we develop. And then that community is going to serve us, as well as we will learn to compromise with one another. We will learn to be able to work together. And guess what? That is where we live out and we become the example for our children. Do we want children who are able to function in society and be able to work and collaborate with others? Then we need to be the parents who do that, demonstrate that. And what a great way to start that, by joining a school pod, coming together as a community so that we can make a difference in a small scale. But in the end, this is going to affect the whole society, because when one community sees another community doing something great and thriving, guess what? They would want to do it. So contact us at schoolpodscanada.com. You can fill out a form. You can find our phone number there. Give us a call. We would be happy to talk to you. And really, let's find out how we can work together to save our children from this agenda that is really right now. And again, it is not just segregate society, but it's to bring people together while protecting and keeping our children safe, and really protecting ourselves and keeping ourselves safe from this negativity that is in our society. So thank you for joining us here at Messianic Lamb Network, and thank you. And I thank this network for giving us an opportunity to broadcast and to really speak to families and help families. We are looking forward to seeing you again on Tuesday. Please send us emails and messages as to what do you want to hear, topics, questions that you have. What would you like us to discuss? Guests that experts that you would like us to invite. We would be happy to do so. Okay, I'm just going to find here. And so we will be wrapping up shortly. Okay. Oh, here we are. So we thank you for joining us. Start reaching out to your community. Start reaching out to us, and let us form communities together with each other's help and save those children from what is happening right now. So I'm saying goodbye to you from my husband, Darryl, and we hope to see you next time.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.